everything. Yeah, if I can just have you come stand with me, kind of the next right there. We're gonna be looking. I'm gonna be standing right there between those cameras. Okay, come to your left just a little bit. A little bit more. Right there. Okay, now back to your right. Right there. Okay. Now can I have you? Can you just say your name for me?
Hi, my name is Clementine Breen. Hearing stories of people who have gone even further in their transition than I have and then detransitioned kind of is what inspired me to talk about it. It wasn't until earlier this year when I actually started doing research about my own doctor and the things that she said, like that you can just get breast implants later, or that comorbidities with mental health don't cause gender dysphoria. And that's when I started to realize that what happened to me wasn't right and isn't actually the standard or shouldn't be. Honestly, overall, my childhood was really good. I was a really girly child, but I had mostly male friends. I played a lot of video games, but I wasn't really into sports. I did a lot of theater and choir. My childhood was pretty good. When I was in about first grade, I was sexually assaulted by another student who was a bit older than me, and I had sort of been warned about sexual assault and telling a trusted adult and things like that, but I wasn't really aware that another child could actually sexually assault you because of the way that sexual assault can be kind of emotionally manipulative. I had no idea what even happened, really, and I didn't really take it as a negative thing, but it definitely impacted me later on. Following the sexual assault, I developed a lot of really weird feelings about my body and a lot of really uncomfortable sexual feelings that I had no idea how to contextualize, and it made me feel really, really separated from the girls around me. I started going through puberty a little bit earlier than a lot of my peers, and a lot of the way that my male friends were looking at me started changing, and that started to terrify me because that was just triggering all these really negative feelings that I had suppressed for so long. And I had a lot of guy friends that would make comments about my physical appearance or call me attractive and cute and things like that, which just made me so uncomfortable with femininity and girlhood, considering what I had been through. And I started to think that there was something wrong with me because the other girls around me weren't feeling this way, or at least they weren't expressing that they felt this way. When I was in about sixth grade, I went to my guidance counselor and I told her sort of all the frustrations I'd been feeling with puberty and how I wasn't ready to shave. I didn't want to wear bras or dress like other girls, and I think that I might be a boy. I think I might be transgender. After the experience where I told my guidance counselor, she arranged a meeting with my entire sixth grade class where she explained to them what being trans was and that I was trans in front of my entire class. And it was really, really awkward for me because it put me on the spot in front of all my peers. And she had all my peers write letters to me, and a lot of them didn't really know what to say. So at some points it felt really nice, but it was mostly just really awkward for me and put me on the spot. My parents brought it up to me that they had been told that I was self-isolating and that I was depressed at school, and that just made me feel even more ashamed and embarrassed because all of this was stemming from something that I didn't even know how to talk about or conceptualize in any way that I could tell them. So when they started confronting me about it, I just felt terrible that I couldn't really give them an answer. My parents' fear kind of doubled down on me a bit, so I started looking for answers to give them, and I thought it'd be easier if I found something or some sort of reason for this. And I sort of was aware of the reason, I just didn't really have the words. But when I started looking online and looking up things like, why do I hate my body? Why do I hate being a girl? I don't want to be a girl or go through female puberty. The only thing that was really coming up was gender dysphoria. Everything would lead to me being trans. And then I'd look into the symptoms of being trans, and it was feeling isolated from your female peers, feeling isolated from all your peers, feeling depressed, feelings of self-hatred, unexplained feelings in your childhood. So basically everything was sort of leading me to this, and I eventually kind of went to social media too. Originally, my mom was really concerned, and she didn't really believe what was going on at all. But my dad was kind of more open to the idea, and he started doing a lot of research. And basically, if you do research about this stuff, it says you can only really affirm a child. So he started getting really concerned when you read things about like the suicide rate. So he was really nervous, and he sort of discovered that we lived close to one of the best doctors in the world for this. When I went to the doctor originally, she asked me a lot of questions about my peers and how I fit in at school, how I wanted to be in the future, and how I wanted to be in the world. And I would say things like, yeah, I wish I was a boy. I wish I fit in with my male peers better. I wish I looked like them. I hate my body. I hate being a girl. It wasn't really, do you want to transition? Do you want to be trans? Things like that, or why do you want that? It was never really about the why. It was only like surface level childhood feelings that I was just carrying resentment for. My diagnosis was that I had gender dysphoria and that I was definitely a transgender boy or man. And sort of the first thing that she started to do with my parents is tell them about the suicide risk. My doctor told my parents that they could either have a living son or a dead daughter. It just terrified my parents, and they had already been hearing from my school that I was depressed and isolated and struggling. So hearing the thought of suicide just terrified them and made them think that this was the only option.
What's really striking about the 4 different cases that we're working on, all young women, is that in each case, the parents were sold a particular lie. That is, that their daughters would commit suicide if the parents didn't give in to the so-called gender transition. But there are other similarities as well. In each of these cases, the professionals, I use that in air quotes, who have done these transitional medical procedures on these girls ignored many warning signs in the medical histories that would have suggested that there are other causes for the issues that they were facing.
Johanna Olsen Kennedy, did she talk to your parents?
She did, and she told them the same thing that she tells everybody, that I was deeply suicidal and that if they didn't let me transition, I would be at high risk for suicide. And I only attempted to kill myself after I transitioned.
So she convinced them that they had 2 options, a dead daughter or a live son.
Yes.
Did she even use those words?
She did use those exact words. I was put on testosterone, right? Sort of, I believe I was like 13 or about 14. I just turned 14, I think. But the combination of the drugs had really affected my body, and it had changed the shape of the breast tissue that I'd been developing. So the breast tissue that I had, which already caused me so much distress and was the reason why boys were looking at me differently, had just totally morphed and sort of become somewhat deformed. So that sort of triggered even worse dysphoria about my chest. I suddenly felt like I didn't fit in with males or females, and I felt even more isolated, and I just started to hate my body even more because I just realized how much I didn't look like the men that I wanted to be, but I also didn't really fit in with the females that I could have been. My doctor started floating the idea of top surgery when I was around 13, and she sort of presented it to my parents as like, if we do this now, it won't be as bad as if we wait till I'm 18. Looking back on it, I don't think they cared about what would happen to me in the future, and especially considering how they treated me when I was a patient and I was older, it really just felt like they were trying to get me through transition as quick as possible. Leading up to the surgery, about when I was 14, I also was sexually abused for the second time in my life, and that went on for about 4 months leading up to surgery. I was feeling really excited going into surgery. I wasn't nervous at all. I was kind of excited to travel to San Francisco for surgery. I didn't even really process how major the surgery was until I woke up and felt it. And that's kind of when it really sunk in what I had done. It wasn't really regret, I was just kind of numb at that point, but the pain really kind of made me aware of what I had just done. Whereas before, I really had no idea what a double mastectomy actually looks like. Yeah, my parents were trying to be supportive and trying to be nice, but it was a similar thing with my friends where I could definitely sense that they were upset and concerned, but they were really told that this was the only treatment option and that if they didn't go along with this, I was just going to get more depressed and potentially suicidal. I definitely think that the doctors lied to my parents, and I think they overemphasized how suicidal I was prior to transitioning and definitely underplayed or downplayed my mental health struggles after I transitioned. I had never considered suicide before transitioning, but after transitioning, I attempted suicide. After top surgery, my mental health kind of took a sharp decline, and I was sort of processing the sexual assault that had just happened. So I started developing really terrible anxiety and depression, and I was also my T dose was getting increased a lot, so I was on more testosterone as well, which at a certain point actually developed into psychosis. And I started seeing and hearing things and having visions and not really knowing when I was dreaming or when I was awake. That just led my doctors to medicate me more. I was put on like about 5 different medications at one point, but I was on antipsychotics, antidepressants, ADHD medication, and sleep pills. It was never questioned if my testosterone use had anything to do with that. My therapist attributed all of my mental health problems to gender dysphoria, and even when it started developing into psychosis, she would suggest that it was because of jealousy towards men, and that was around the time I got a new therapist. My new therapist immediately wanted to work on the sexual assault that I had just been through, and only wanted to talk about that, was not concerned about my gender identity. And when we just started looking at the sexual assault, I started thinking about all these things from my childhood and processing things that I hadn't thought about before. When I started questioning my identity, I started questioning if I really needed those medications, because when I started to go through therapy, I stopped having the psychosis and I stopped feeling so anxious, and all my mental health symptoms just kind of went away, so I didn't really see a point in taking so many psychiatric drugs. My social life totally just died when I detransitioned. I lost so many friends over it. A lot of people took it immediately as political in some way, or that they got really defensive about it. So I had friends that were queer or trans, and they took it really defensively, and I wasn't trying to do that at all, but people really took it harshly. And when I was trans and when I was just identifying as male, I was much more respected and well-liked. I wanted to speak out because I started reading stories about other people and hearing about other people that have been through the same thing as me, and hearing that I wasn't alone made me realize that this isn't just like a one-time misstep. This keeps happening over and over again. Yeah, Elon Musk retweeted a video of me, and I heard a video of him talking about his experience with his own child, and it was sort of similar to what my parents went through.
It happened to one of my older boys, where I was essentially tricked into signing documents for one of my older boys, Xavier. This was before I had really any understanding of what was going on, and we had COVID going on, and so there was a lot of confusion. I was told, Xavier might commit suicide. It wasn't explained to me that puberty blockers are actually just sterilization drugs. And so I lost my son, essentially. They call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah,
All right. So the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead.
Looking back on the experience with my guidance counselor, I wish that they had asked me really about what I felt about womanhood and masculinity, because my ideas of it were really shallow and it was based in a lot of fear about womanhood. And when she sort of asserted that I would be supported and that I was probably transgender, looking back, it didn't really feel like it was on my own terms or really in line with what I was even thinking.
So no talk about your mental health?
It wasn't really discussed, like, outside of the context of being trans. I'm really thankful for a lot of the resources that have been able to help me, like Transition Justice, which connected me with my lawyers, Campbell Miller Payne, and they've been awesome. And I'm also insanely grateful for the Center for American Liberty and other organizations that are helping me and other people like me. But with children, it's so hard to understand a child's emotions, and especially with comorbidities like sexual assault or other mental health issues, you actually do have to interrogate why children are thinking the way that they do, and you cannot take children at their word all the time. Kids have crazy ideas about all sorts of things, and it's not okay to just go along with things so you can swipe an insurance credit card.
Are you happy that you're a girl?
I'm so happy. I was terrified when I first detransitioned because I was like, am I going to be miserable? Am I not going to fit in? And I've just found so much peace in being my true self.